Hello, everyone, and we are on part two for my new casting Astro podcast. And basically, today we are also saying Happy Valentine's Day, and we are basically going over the next eclipses. In part one, we did do eclipse season. So, again, every couple months, we get into more. As of today, we are just days away from the new moon or the solar eclipse on the 17th. That will be in Aquarius, and it'll be at 28 degrees. Again, eclipses are basically connection to the sun and moon, almost like full moon. So on this one, it just so happens to be the solar eclipse where the sun and the moon meets up, and again, you end up seeing in the sky like a dark image that is a reflection of the moon because it passes close to the sun. And then for full moons, basically, it is when the moon is at the opposite of the sun. But that will be the lunar eclipse, which will be in Virgo. That will be March 3rd. So we'll be basically going over two different charts. I always recommend you guys to follow me by going to either a free birth chart, on Google, just search it. I also use AstroSeek, but it's really up to you on what you decide to use because I know at New Casting Astro, we just want to provide you guys with information. That way you can always, cover the basics. And we are pretty much going to wrap up season one after part two is over. So on February 17th, basically you will have a lot of things to look at on your chart. So if you want to focus on specifically the new moon, you basically look at the sun and the moon being at 28 degrees of Aquarius. Guys, don't forget this is a new area because we have Pluto at 4 degrees of Aquarius. And it's going to be a long time before it reaches where this eclipse is happening, depending on who you are in person, or if you just somehow reach my podcast, you are going to have a lot of information to kind of be able to reflect on or come back to and just figure out where the world was or where the world is going. Because I can guarantee you, once Pluto reaches that critical point, there's going to be something major that we will just clearly be going forward to, as humans on our planet, outside our planet, maybe on other systems and in the sky as well. So I want to just focus on the fact that this partial eclipse is in Aquarius, and Aquarius is an air sign, fixed air sign, by the way. Basically, it will be, I guess, you can almost say the only um, air energy because there's nothing really in Gemini or there's nothing really in Libra at the moment that you can really, hone in on or focus on. So Aquarian really deals with the people, conversations, and Pluto usually is looked at as a negative thing, but there's already been enough negativity. So I would say the most negative thing we're looking at is a lot of our own things that we haven't been doing together with each other. But I just feel like as the days keep going, with AI and everything, there's a lot of information that's just no longer just singled. It's becoming more shared in a way, which probably will make a lot of people comfortable, especially if you're not used to looking at things in a more equitable world. But I think that's really what this area of Aquarius will focus on as the years and day comes in individually freedom, which doesn't necessarily mean your neighbors are unimportant or someone that you walk by is unimportant. But I just feel like at some point, a lot of people are going to make their own choices on what freedom looks like, as a person and in their prospective communities, just in a major way. So there's just so much to kind of impact on that area itself. Let's see. I think one of the big things, obviously, throughout our life, we just have these different areas. I think one of them, not necessarily going political here, but ICE. Yeah, I just feel like that was a idea, but I just don't think a lot of people are interested in it being in cities or being a reason to, hold a person back. Yeah, iced out doesn't necessarily mean one thing only. If you say iced out, it can mean to jewelry, that can relate to fashion. It is definitely not political when you hear iced out. So that's just a very interesting thing because like I already said about individuality, a person can walk around all day and wear something that says iced out, but it has nothing to do with political things or government. It's for 100% focused on a person's self, which is so crazy to me because, a person has to understand that. that it's not about some group of people that's going to look around to see who's a natural citizen or blah 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 or illegal alien, whatever that means these days. But it's 100% focused on a person that wants to focus on their jewelry, their look, their image. And again, like I said, this goes into this Pluto Aquarius area. So I do think that maybe the solar eclipse is a great starting point for anyone that wants to kind of just see like, what things could become, because also Mars is there. So it's just such a dominant figure in decision making and conversation. This fix is usually set on a certain idea. Again, this is expansive because we just have other areas to, like I said, to focus on as people. And then we can go and focus on Pisces in this chart because that is probably the next major area. As of right now, you just will have Venus here and yes, the North Node and Mercury. So being that Saturn and Neptune basically are going into this Aries area, which is 0 degrees. It's profound. It's very groundbreaking. It's new. Aries is the first sign, so it's a fire sign. So there's going to be a lot of ideas that's coming together, and I think if we just go back into think about AI, that's clearly is going to be all over the place. AI is starting to know an individual person, everything about them, whether it's by choice or whether it's just kind of fortunately by force. Yeah. So I don't know. I figure that this is also a great chart to kind of be able to reflect back on because, again, basically from here, we'll be dealing with more years to come. Once you see the sun come back here again, it'll clearly be a new, different eclipse area, of course, because this probably will be the starting point for Aquarius and Leo, because that's really what it is. It's opposite signs. Yeah. I don't know. I'm just pretty much amazed by the fact that a lot of this information and a lot of the things that we see on the chart is just not something that is usually talked about at all in astrology. So if you go on YouTube and you just search new moon, and you probably will find a lot of research and information. And then also the Aries 0 degree, that's a great way to also look up some additional more information that you might need for your chart. Because again, guys, once you look at these charts, you also got to think about your own life and your own chart. For instance, I have a Leo rising, so the Aries part is clearly connected to my first house, being that it's another fire sign. However, my rising is a fixed fire sign, and Aries is a cardinal fire sign. So direction is what I usually think about when I think of cardinal, and fixed is usually a point that's very focused. So yeah, you want to think about how that could be beneficial to you. Also, you want to think about how it may make you in an uncomfortable position, but uncomfortable positions sometimes lead to comfort. So I would say for me, I can see this being a little bit more on the outer bounds or the travel type of vibe. Um, in my individual life. But at a world level, yeah, new beginnings, 100% for sure. That can deal with the person, their fitness, travel, their family, their love life, whatever the case may be. And going back to Valentine's Day. Yeah, we're going to go into the next part of the eclipses, which is the lunar eclipse, because, we just went over a solar eclipse. And again, the lunar eclipse is going to take place on March 3rd, and this will be in Virgo. It will be 12 degrees Virgo. Much different than the solar eclipse. So I like this one because it's just really putting on an emphasis of, the opposition, which is pretty important here because for one, you have, wow, this is so interesting. You have Mars, which will be at a 0 degree point, and you will have planets like the Sun, the North Node, Mercury, again, Venus, which was already in Pisces. You're getting the new results of these planets because, Saturn was a restriction, Neptune was a little bit of the confusion. So a lot of the things that might need to be shown to light is probably going to be a little bit more visible because these are fast moving planets compared to Saturn and Neptune, which are, I guess you can say, kind of more in a clear direction point versus confusion or worry about the disillusion. So we're going into a little more clairvoyance, I guess, or clarity that you're going to see because these planets also will connect to, or which is in Cancer. So there will be a lot of, I guess, water in this lunar eclipse because you have seven celestial bodies that's basically in water. Because as I mentioned already, Pluto, I'm sorry, Mercury, Venus, and again, Mercury retrograde is coming up. So you guys be prepared for that. North Node, Mars, and Jupiter. Those are all water, pretty much. Because yeah, those will all be water. I'm sorry, but yeah, we may see floods. I think they also mention blood. Health wise or something that can also play a role here that you might want to pay attention to. And I just think with Neptune and clearly Saturn moving ahead, because on this lunar eclipse, Neptune will be 1 degree and Saturn will be 2 degrees. So it's just a lot of more, energy for newness and not necessarily focused on the old things. So can be great things coming up, but also with greatness, you can have a little bit of negativity that shows up. But you have the moon that is in opposition to all of this pretty much. And that can kind of make people find some sort of comfort or just focus in on comfort versus just going to the new things. Because with Pisces, you already know it goes with the flow. Virgo is usually pretty critical on task and finding perfection. And it's another Mercurial sign. So with Mercury being retrograde in Pisces, that might just really confuse people a bit. But eventually, important things just will always be visible. I think being that Jupiter rules Pisces, it will be probably one of the most important areas to kind of consider here if you're looking at the lunar eclipse because there seems to be a lot of information on maybe luck and maybe expanded adventures is possible, whether they're planned out more or they're just happening. You still can kind of think about Pluto and Aquarius, as I already said, community, the people, the conversation. So it seems like a lot of that is available and it just all depends on what you use to use your time to. So 100% recommend if you are following along to look at your house of probably Cancer, Pisces, to see where that is in your own birth chart and see how it could manifest. I actually have a Pisces moon, so I would have to say it's a positive in a way. But again, it's also not the most easiest thing to deal with because with the moon, you're dealing with your emotions and the mind a bit, which also can lead into the body. So you want to make sure you just think about everything that relates to you as a person and also religion. That's probably a great area to think about for probably both of these eclipses, personal religion, and community religion. I don't know, some people, sometimes they make new religions. And then also you got people that don't necessarily believe in certain things. But in my opinion, that also can be a form of a religion because if you don't believe in something, you're practicing something. Or if you're not practicing something, you do have your own values. And I think once there's values and things that you live towards, whether you're atheist or whatever you call yourself, I still think they have their own religion, whatever that may or may not be. So I would say, yeah, honing in on the what's under the hood as well. I think that is also probably going to be probably major for AI is what's under the hood and the stuff that's under the hood, how it can be useful and for everyone. Because whether we like it or not, a lot of this stuff will be available to the average person, which can bring growth and expansion, which I've already mentioned that Jupiter is capable of doing. I like both of the eclipses. I always like when it's weird and it's um, water based. That's just my favorite. Probably because that's what's in my chart. I have a water trine, which involves Scorpio, Pisces, Cancer. That's in my birth chart. Some people don't like those things, but me, I love them because it just makes things a little bit more I don't know. It like, I don't want to use this word, but it brings lubrication, to the bones, to the mind, to the body, which our body is made up of water. So a lot of the fire stuff is probably some things a lot of people like, especially male sports. Some women too, they prefer a little bit more fire and we'll get there. But I don't think a lot of people like to deal with the burns that fire can cause. And I think water is very healing. So when we do have it, we might need to just do our best to protect it. And I think that will also show itself as we continue as people and humanity. So I say both of these charts are very interesting. And yeah, this is a closer probably of my last eclipse focus episodes because I already did part one and this is part two. So the next set of episodes that I might do, I'll be covering future events, which would involve future new moons of basically some of the areas that I left out from part one, and that will close, the season until we consider what could be coming up next. I am considering working with someone soon on a conversation. I don't know if it'll necessarily be astrology based, but we both have already discussed a lot of different things, and we basically want to just have one of those episodes where hopefully everyone will be able to kind of join in on. But what I mean by joining in on is you're listening, and we're just kind of speaking on stuff that a lot of people want to hear about. This episode is probably one of my longest episodes. It obviously will be edited. And I thank you guys for joining me for this time if you made it to the end of this episode. And again, it doesn't matter what year you listen to my podcast. I think you always will be able to reflect on it and, use your own ability to find out what's important to you. So with that being said, thank you guys for joining me. And till next time with New Casting Astro.